Hey, welcome back to Super Sons, where my brother Jake and I help you find your foothold in the DC universe. Today, we have a special guest, Michael Moreci, whose new book, The Lost Carnival, a Dick Grayson graphic novel, comes out on May 5th. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Very excited to have you. As Jake has kind of limited me, the plot has been my favorite comic maybe of the past 20 years.
Wow.
So I'm very, very excited to chat with you.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. I'm thrilled.
Yeah. I had to wear my plot shirt even though you can't see me.
I wish I was wearing mine.
We could have matched. We really messed this one up.
Next time, we'll coordinate.
Yeah. So, very excited to have you. We just have a couple questions for you, and it should be pretty fun. So, Jake and I are pretty hard-hitting journalists, so we always like to lead with a pretty tough question. So, what's your favorite sandwich and why?
Oh, that's a great question. Let's see. My favorite sandwich is probably, it's probably the bacon turkey Bravo from Panera. And I love it because it has this tomato bread that it is just fantastic, and bacon. So right off the bat, bacon is one of my favorite things in the world. So you combine that with like a really good bread, and they have really good turkey, which goes to show how worldly I am. Is that like I'm like my favorite sandwiches from Panera.
I'm actually excited that was your answer, because that's what I get when I go to Panera. But that bread is the best part. Like it's kind of out there. Like I'm excited. I'm excited that we're on that same vibe.
It's kind of weirdly sweet, like it's got like little cinnamon. It's just delicious.
Yeah, that's it. That's it's like a little bit sweeter, but like with the bacon. Oh man.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Man, this interview is going great. We got plot, we got bacon turkey Bravo. This.
Yeah, we're like the biggest hype men in the podcasting world.
Oh boy. I was trying not to cut you guys off by laughing. All right. What is your DC Comics origin story, and how did you get into reading comics?
Okay, yeah. So origin story in terms of like working, it was strange. DC, and I don't think they do it anymore. At least maybe it's on pause, but this like talent showcase, which were like classes for writers and artists. They were separate. And I was chosen to do the first. It was like the pilot class with myself. It was like Vita Ayo was in there, Matt Rosenberg, Hina Khan. A lot of great people were in this class. I remember getting the call. I was actually on vacation in Disneyland with my kids, and like all of a sudden I got this weird call. I was like, oh, it's New York, and I always answer or LA. And I was like, New York or LA, I always answer those questions. So like it could be work related. So I answered, and it was a friend that I have who worked at DC, Sarah, who's a wonderful person, and she's like, hey, we got this DC program, this writer's program. Do you want to be in? And I'm staying there in Disneyland. I'm like, sure, So it was an unusual origin story, and I went through the class and started writing, issues, here and there. Let's see, I did some Batman, did some Nightwing separate from the Lost Carnival book, some Flash. And in terms of my origins as a comic book reader, it started probably when I was 5 or 6. I forget the exact age. These are back in like the spinner rack days, and I would save up. I think comics then were 75 cents, if I'm not mistaken. Marvel, DC, and I would always save up. And my mom would take me to 7-Eleven, which is like 2 or 3 blocks from our house, and we walk over there, and I get a comic either there or garage sales were really big for getting comics. And I'll never forget, I had this, and I still have it. This Batman Detective Comics. And the numbers escaping me, but it's this comic that I loved, and it was a Jim Aparo, of course, and it was like him. It was Batman fighting off a giant blimp, It was like Terror in the Sky or something like that. And it was a comic that I found I'll never forget finding it at this garage sale. I had been no more than like 6 years old. I'll never forget like finding this and getting it for like a dime or something like that, and just reading this thing, over and over and over. And I didn't know, obviously, Aparo then, but now Aparo is so, foundational in, Batman's mythos and development. And luckily I still managed to hang on to that comic, even though it is definitely worn.
It's seen better days.
It has.
You actually jumped the gun a little bit. I was going to ask you about the Writers' Workshop a little bit later, but I wanted to see what was your biggest takeaway from that program, just because I think someone else we talked to had been through something along those lines. I just wanted to see how it was for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, because it was an interesting class, and it was a great class. So Scott Snyder was one who taught it, and it was kind of strange for me in a way, because like I had been through writing programs for undergraduate, college, then graduate, and had been writing comics for a few years. Divorced of DC Marvel, doing like Image stuff, my own stuff, whatever, and going into it, not in an like arrogant way, but like just in a curiosity way of like, what can I learn, was the biggest question I was asking myself. Like, what is the goal that I have, I guess, coming into this class and going out of it? And I really wanted to learn how to tell a superhero story, because it's not the same, when you're working in the comics, in the medium, like there are different ways to tell different stories. And the superhero story, particularly the Marvel DC story, where not only you're telling the story that exists in a very specific framework, but you're also telling a story that has, a lot of history behind it, 50 years, 60 years, whatever. So I really wanted to wrap my head around that. And Scott was, I don't know, many people who you can say who are better equipped to teach that and convey those lessons. And I learned a ton. I learned a ton about writing in general, but I specifically learned a lot about how to write a big, emotional, action-packed, dramatic superhero story the way that the best of DC can do with those great characters. And it was fantastic.
Oh, that sounds like it is a pretty good program then. So I know this young adult graphic novel is a little bit different from prose and comics, but do you think there's any difference in your writing process when handling something like this?
Yes, for sure. I think the big thing with this, like I had to kind of turn, as much as I, talked up learning how to tell those big emotional, grand superhero stories, I had to turn that part of my brain off. And I was so accustomed to that, because at the time I was really writing a lot more than I kind of am now, I guess, at the moment. But I was writing a lot more and of that type of story. So I had to turn that, push that side of my brain out of my point of view, and like really tell a story, because it would be easy. It would be easy to tell the kind of Nightwing story that has already been told in some way and refashion it for a YA audience. And in a way I did that. I can't say that I reinvented Dick Grayson or Nightwing. But the fact of the matter is that like, this is for a different reader, and this is a different kind of story. And I really wanted to find a footing in the story that this needed to be, this specific, Lost Carnival story that wasn't just kind of a repackaging of the superhero mythos and tropes that, quite frankly, we all know and love. I wanted to make sure that I was endearing to those mythos, but also stake a course that was quite different and quite specific for the type of story that this needed to be, which is not the same as, Nightwing 48, Nightwing 52, whatever number in the catalog. And that was important to me. And I really had to, think about things in a different way to achieve that.
You've written books and comics in nearly every genre, from everything from science fiction to thrillers. Does your writing process change from genre to genre? And what genres did you focus on when in on for Lost Carnival?
So yeah, in some ways my writing process does. I mean, the fundamentals will always stay the same in the way that I work. Like I'm really passionate about the craft. That's why I do this. That's the most important thing to me. I love writing. I thoroughly love writing. I love the process of it. I love the result. I love the product. But I especially love the craft, and I'm always trying to work to hone and improve and sharpen that craft. So I'm a craft first person when it comes to writing. So when I'm sitting down to actually do the work, it stays, while I am trying to evolve, it stays pretty similar in terms of I'm a thorough outliner. I do a lot of my work front loaded before I get to writing a novel or writing a script or whatever. I want to know what the story is, start to finish before I, earnestly put pen to paper. So that part stays, pretty consistent. Now, when thinking about Lost Carnival and thinking about genre, the thing that really appealed most to me was a sense of romantic mystery. I thought a lot about for some obvious reasons, but for some not so obvious reasons, the Night Circus, just a fantastic and brilliant novel that came out a few years ago. I forget how long, but while on the surface you look at a novel like that and there is a sense of like we said, romance and mystery, there also a sense a deep sense of wonder at the, I guess you can say, at the magical or at the supernatural. And I wanted to convey that in Dick. This is Dick's first encounter with something otherworldly. He runs into this Lost Carnival, which is has some, I don't want to give away too much, but some elements of the supernatural in it. And I wanted him to approach that not as again, going back to what I said before, not as the Dick we know who's, kind of seen it all, but as a 16-year-old kid who hasn't seen this kind of stuff and still has that youthful sense of amazement and curiosity and imagination and wonder at what he's encountering and what his experiences are. And I really felt that in the Night Circus, and I really want to have that be part of this book. I thought it was important for Dick in a way to really show that this is not the same, Grayson that we know as an adult, but see those seeds planted into the person we know he becomes.
So is there anything that draws you to Dick Grayson, as a character?
Oh, yes. I mean, so my writing tends to have, at times, it depends. I work in different genres. I oscillate also in different tones, but one of the things I like to write is having some levity and having some fun. And I always think Dick, or we could say Nightwing is fun Batman. He's Batman. I mean, they have essentially the same origin, murdered parents and finding their way after that and, becoming vigilante and evolving and growing. But Dick and Bruce are such different people. They have so many important fundamental differences. And one of the fundamental differences is that Dick isn't necessarily defined, by this tragedy, where Bruce very much is in a lot of ways. And I wanted to bring that out in Dick because that's something that I really, really love. I love that he's able to be, not that Bruce isn't multidimensional, he is in his own way, but show those dimensions in Dick. And that is the part that I really, really love about him. He's so much fun. He has such optimism and warmth and care, and it's so evident. While those things, that warmth and care is it exists in Bruce, but it's buried beneath, and he keeps that beneath, and he's very guarded about it. And Dick is not. Dick is a very outwardly caring, emotional guy, and I love that about him. I love that he's able to balance the complexities of the tragedy that he was able to move away from, and embrace it still, despite all that, just embrace a really refreshing optimism at the same time.
Well, that was the perfect answer to go into our next question. Then. So it seems like young Dick Grayson has some romance in this book. Did you draw any inspiration from Dick's other iconic relationships?
Well, as we know, Dick's had a few relationships. Like he's a popular guy in the DC universe.
All the relationships.
But I think that I definitely, those are all touchstones, and it goes to who Dick is. He's the guy, that everybody wants to be around. He's so joyful and charming and kind and brave and heroic. So it's natural that people are attracted to that, right? And I had that all in mind when I'm thinking about this romance that buzzed between him and Luciana in the book. And he's still that same charming, heroic person, maybe not as formed as we know him, but he's still essentially that same person. So thinking about his exploits, really did play a lot into seeing how Dick's early romances would have looked like.
And I know you mentioned you're pretty big on the craft of writing and things like that. But so do you listen to music when you write, or do you just sit in silence?
Well, generally, yes. At the moment, a lot. We're sheltering in place, and I have 2 young kids, so they're home all the time. And so I've been listening to a lot more music. I generally listen to film scores when I listen to some of the DC film scores, Star Wars film scores, some horror film scores, because they're a little bit moody and quieter. But yeah, I generally, it's never really stuff with lyrics, just kind of musical stuff. Because it's just kind of a nice, almost like a white noise going on that there's a reason we think of our best ideas, in the shower. You're best suited to think about things when you're not thinking about things.
So I know you mentioned, you just said Star Wars and those types of soundtracks. If you had to pick one song to write to continuously, what song are you picking?
Oh, probably the Duel of Fates from Star Wars. It's so awesome.
I mean, the best.
There's no other answer.
Yeah.
Right?
There's no other answer.
It's really hard not to start singing it too, like the.
Right.
Hi, welcome to Super Sons. We're singing.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, we have written original music.
Did. All right. And I apologize because I'm probably going to butcher this name. But what was it like to work with illustrator Sass Millage on this book?
Oh, it's funny. I've been in interviews and social media just so effusive. And I feel like I've been effusive to the point I fear that it's going to come off as disingenuous. But she is so good. She is such a remarkable, awesome talent. And it's just I don't even know what to say, just so fortunate and so lucky because she made this book. There's nothing more important. I guess I can say this. There's nothing more important than with creating art, whether it's writing or illustrating or coloring or anything, any sort of aspect of art, is having a unique point of view. Especially in this industry where every story's kind of been told already. And it's really, really the magic and the alchemy is the manner and comes down to the manner in which you tell it. And she has a tremendous point of view. She makes these characters her own, but still feel totally, I guess for lack of a better term, loyal to who they are, to Dick Grayson. And the characters she created, the new characters like Willow or Luciana, are all have so much vibrancy in life. She has that gift that you really, again, I can't say enough, that you really can't teach. But it when you see it, and it's having a unique point of view. And she has a tremendous point of view. She's an excellent storyteller, and she just did absolutely wonderful work. She's the star of this book, as far as I'm concerned, and I thoroughly, truly mean that. And it was just nothing more. nothing I can say other than it was just a joy to collaborate with her and watch her be as amazing as she is.
And how was it with the full team, your whole art team, to bring more of like a retro vintage feel to the book? How did that work? Did you just it melded?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I was asked that about like that question, and also like how we decide the tonal questions, like the colors are just the tones. And weirdly enough, like I didn't make any of those decisions. I can't like take credit. That comes down to the art team and to the editorial team with Alex Carr, who's the editor on this, and they did a fantastic job making really, really good, interesting, and appropriate decisions artistically. And the art, like I said, Sass's work, I mean, just totally works. She manages to really blend that, like you say, like it has a vintage feel, it has a classic feel, and bringing in the art into that as well bringing into the colors really did a great job of bringing out what Sass was already doing.
All right, so what DC character would you love a chance to write?
I probably shouldn't say this because I'd probably be jinxing it, but like I would do because I'm such a space adventure fan. I'm such a big, like, not necessarily like my space adventure, like my sci-fi is not so much like that hard sci-fi, like The Expanse. Like I'm more of, as I'm a Star Wars guy, everybody knows that. I don't even know why I'm explaining this, but anyway, I would love to write a big New Gods, Orion, just thoroughly embrace that like big space opera story that like I know that is there. It's been told. I mean, no one can do it better than Kirby. It's been done perfectly, and that's why I'm like loath to even like suggest it. But like as I passionately love Kirby. He's one of my idols, and knowing how close like that story is to Star Wars, and there's like a cross kind of almost pollination there, and how excellent the Fourth World mythos just are. They're just so great. I would love to tell a story with Orion and getting into that world and finding a good way to get into that world that's both respectful of everything that Kirby did, but also kind of somehow fresh and new.
So I have another question after this, but you mentioned Star Wars again. I just have to ask, who's your Jedi?
Oh, Obi-Wan.
That's a good answer.
Thoroughly.
So with that, you've worked on some of the biggest franchises ever, including Star Wars and DC. What's it like to write about already established characters and worlds versus something completely original, like stories like The Plot?
Well, I think that and this is something that's funny. I taught a class this past winter that we barely got in before everything, happened around the world. But anyway, the point is I taught this class, and one of the most important lessons that I wanted to convey to the students in the class, and I touched on this on an answer just a moment ago, is about point of view. And I think that one of the most essential things in both is that, but it functions in different ways. And this is a Snyder thing that he taught us in class, is the way that you approach writing, Batman or Superman or Wolverine or whomever, the way you approach that is basically you're taking the toys off the shelf, you're playing with them for a little bit, and then your job is to put them back pretty much the way you found them. Because the way these stories work, ongoing for however long, serialized storytelling, you can't make sudden, crazy, big changes. I mean, sometimes that happens. We know, sometimes, somebody else will be Batman for a little while, but Batman's Bruce Wayne. And he's always going to be Bruce Wayne, right? So, you have to stay true to this fundamental truths about Bruce Wayne and about who Batman is. But the trick is that to come with it in your own point of view, is to thoroughly understand that character you're telling, whether it's Hal Jordan, whether it's Wally West, whether it's whoever. Have an absolute thorough understanding of who that character is. Who is, Barry? Who is Wally? Understand that. So when you take the toys off the shelf, you know exactly the toy that you're playing with, but being able to infuse your own point of view to tell the story, to tell that Flash story or tell that Batman story in a way that nobody else can tell it. Like that's completely, thoroughly you. And that's something Scott does tremendously well. Scott's Batman stories are very, very much Scott stories. You can tell they are a Scott Snyder story, but they're also thoroughly Batman. You recognize them like, yeah, this is a Batman story. This is how Batman works. I get it. I get as a Batman fan that what he's doing with the character, but it's also being told in a very particular way. If you don't have that point of view, you're just kind of writing fan fiction. You're just writing some sort of. Sorry, my text went off. I hope you guys didn't hear that. And I don't know. I'm turn off do not disturb. Okay. So you're telling like a fan fiction or just kind of replicating something that's come before, and nobody wants to do that as an artist, and nobody wants to read it as a fan, as a reader. Similarly, you still have to do the same thing with your own stuff, with your own creations. Because like if you look at something, you mentioned the plot. Like if you look at the plot, while it is to me a really intimate story and a really personal story, at its core, it's really just a haunted house story in so many ways. And that's not something that's not a story that's never been told. There's, Haunted Hill House came out, last year, like there was what was that one movie, The Turning, the haunted house, film that came out 2 months ago. That is a tradition that exists. And you have to find a way to be able to understand the tradition or the character you're working in, do something new and unique with it. And for me, the way in is always being able to bring your own personal sensibilities and stories and whatever to it, blend those things together. And that's the alchemy of making a story really work.
All right. So our big mission on the podcast is to help new readers get into comics. So if you had to hand someone their first comic, what do you think is the perfect book?
Oh, the plot. No. It's tough. I think that like the impulse obviously is to be like, Watchmen or Saga or something like that. And I think that like those by no means are bad choices at all. Those are tremendous choices, right? But I think that there's something to be said about like one is like identifying what the person is interested in, sci-fi or horror or superheroes or whatever. So there's a lot of different ways in. I mean, I think that's the great thing about comics is that there's so much and there's so many things that you can point people to. I would be happy to give somebody, if somebody was into a certain kind of aesthetic, Preacher could work as your first comic. If somebody was into like, superhero stories, depending on the stories, Wolfman and Perez's Teen Titans can work. There's so many ways in that exists, like in the history of comics. Comics to me at least are a medium that does a remarkable job of remaining timeless in a way. So I would never be hesitant to be like, here, read this comic from the 70s or the 80s or whatever. Like, it doesn't feel dated. Like the way you would like watch a TV show from the 70s, you're like, this feels old, But comics don't feel that way, at least to me. I could still pick up, like I said, like new, Teen Titans. That still feels, at least to me, remarkably fresh. It still feels new and fun and exciting. But yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what the person would want. And I think there's a lot of good options that exist. Yeah, there's the touchstones that are good too. But like, if someone's a horror fan or something like that, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, or Six Gun from Cullen Bunn is great. There's a lot of good options that like, I think that like, it's just a matter of getting that right book in the right hands. And, you get a fan for life, I think.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Pretty similar to Marv Wolfman's that we had during our last interview. That it really depends on the person you're giving it to. So I think we're going to have to retool that question anyway.
Yeah.
So, is there any positive trends you've seen in comics, the comics themselves, the industry, or the whole community as a whole that you'd like to see more of?
Yeah, I mean, we are in an unusual time right now in the industry, and there's a lot of challenges right now. There's a lot of like uncertainty, a lot of concern and worry, and that's tough. That's really, really tough. But at the same time, I see a lot of publishers who are able to think quickly and think on their feet and are taking chances that I don't think that like they would have naturally taken on their own. Like I think that like we've all recognized that distribution is a problem. I would never. I have no intention of like demonize. Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, you don't want to make them mad.
No, I don't. Diamond, you guys are doing great.
Oh, totally.
Oh boy.
But no, I don't want to demonize anybody at all. But I think it's interesting to look at like there's ways in which the model that we had before things shut down can still absolutely thrive and function. Like there's no doubt in my mind. But I think that like now it's like people are recognizing, oh, we can do that plus this. Like we can, like I work with Axel Alonso's company, AWA, doing a book there, and they're starting to put their books on Webtoon and Topless, and those are like some of those books have like you look at the readers, it's in the millions. If you were to forge creative partnerships, like that can be a really beneficial thing to publishers, to DC, to Marvel, to comic shops. Like the biggest question right now in my mind, and I see this being embraced, is not about how we break and restructure how we do things. I don't think that's the question. I think the question is simply how do we expand the readership base? Like how do we get more people to read comics? Because this is the hill that I will die on, that like people want to read comics. Like they spend billions of dollars to see comic book movies. Manga sells like crazy. Manga sells like crazy. Dogman sold 12 million copies last year. 12 million over 2 books. Like that's insane. People want to read comics. The positive thing that I see is the recognition that people want to read comics, and now our kind of slice of the comics pie, recognizing, oh, okay, people want to read comics. The problem is not a content problem. It's not any really problem, except we're not reaching them. And that is the thing that has to be solved. And I think that's starting to evolve and change a little.
I think especially with these DC young graphic novels and things like that are aimed at different audiences, having those in bookstores, I just wrote a big article on this. So I did a ton of research, and like, as you said, Dogman, that book sells like hotcakes. And I'm like, wait, this is the Captain Underpants guy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's just like, there's so many different audiences that aren't being touched with the direct market. So it's stuff like this, like your book that's coming out is where Jake and I have talked about it many times, how excited we are about those things, just because it gives someone who wouldn't normally step into a comic book shop a book in their hand.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think we need to get over the idea that it's competition. Like the same thing like digital, like retailers get very concerned about digital pricing, and we get very concerned about stuff being released in Walmarts, and we get concerned about stuff that's being tailored for bookstores. It's like, guys, everyone, that's not competition. That's building readers. That's reaching new people. Like that is a good thing. That is get more people. Like the more people you reach, and the more people that have word of mouth and recognize that these stories are being told and where to get them and that they exist. Like that is a very, very positive thing.
All right. Is there anything you wish people would ask you about in interviews that you normally don't get asked about?
Yeah, nobody talks about Star Wars enough. No. No, not really. I mean, especially now, like I've been really lucky, you guys included, to be asked really good questions about this book, which makes me feel really happy. Like I want I want people to like engage with the story. Selling books is fun and great, and numbers are awesome. But like, what matters to me, I'm luckily not the spreadsheet person. I'm the writer. So I want people to engage with the story. I want people to, to read it and take something away from it. And I've been getting that a lot with Lost Carnival. It's been a really great and positive response, which I love. It's a story and a book that I love. And so, no, I don't feel like I've had anything that I wished I was asked that wouldn't, particularly with this book, because the coverage has been awesome.
How do you feel about Rogue One?
Oh, it's one of the, is it? Yeah, it's my favorite of the Disney era. Is Rogue One is my favorite.
Nice. I was going to end the interview if you said something bad. So,
oh no!
I'm like, guys, are you there?
No,
Dan's personal opinion's getting in the way.
Listen, Rogue One was a masterpiece.
It was. It was.
And the soundtrack was a beautiful. Sorry, we're a DC podcast. I can't go on about Rogue One. Specifically, Rogue One. I'll talk about it all day.
Oh yeah, dude. I have it on. I love it so much. I have it on vinyl, man. No joke.
Oh, you have, man. That's a good idea. I should buy that.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, that is pretty much what I listen to when I read comics. Just that soundtrack over and over. It's like one of those movies I watch too many times. So like when my girlfriend comes home, she's like, "Oh, you're watching Rogue One again? Cool."
That's a good problem to have, as far as I'm concerned.
So the last one is also a pretty hard hitting question.
Yes.
Okay.
If you had to, hold on, make myself laugh.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, this is your question. This is yours.
Yes. All right. If you had to build a Rube Goldberg machine, what would be its purpose, and what would be the thing that sets it off?
Oh man, wait. What's? Oh man, I know this. I feel like such a moron.
It's one of those super complicated machines. Like you hit a domino, and then it makes a whole tumble effect until it does something simple, like
cut an orange.
Or makes a piece of toast.
Oh, what do I need? Let's see. I know it's going to be something that has to do with food. Let's see. Right now, as I'm so desperate for things that I miss, I would be able to build something that would make me a fantastic donut, because God, I miss donuts.
Yeah,
that's a worthwhile.
Time barely exists anymore, so it's like hard to differentiate when breakfast is, or I really want to.
Donuts are for every time.
Yeah, Dan.
24
get to breakfast. What's wrong with you?
It's just breakfast cake. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Fried breakfast cake. Let's get it right.
So, do you have any other projects coming up that we should keep an eye out for?
Well, yeah, obviously, there's Lost Carnival. There's my, we had mentioned Star Wars a few times. My Clone Wars, I had a Clone Wars series. It was going to be a weekly series. It was 5 issues. It was adjacent to the Clone Wars that's running now on Disney Plus, but it got delayed. The first issue was supposed to come out April 1st, and it got delayed. So that's coming out at some point. I've seen the issues; they exist, but we just don't know when. But that'll be out. That'll be out at some point, and I'm really excited. That was my first all the Star Wars I've done in the Adventures universe is the issues work. That's like a 12-page main story, then like an 8-page backup story. So I've always been part of that. We're splitting, the issue, which is totally cool. But these Clone Wars are just mine, like mine and mine alone. So it's kind of cool to be these are my issues selfishly. And plus, Clone Wars is my favorite thing. I'm a staunch prequel defender. So that'll be out again June, July. I don't know, 2038. Who knows?
But it's coming.
It's coming. Get ready. Get excited.
So the Lost Carnival, a Dick Grayson graphic novel, comes out on May 5th. You can find a local comic shop online to order from using comicshoplocator.com, or you can go to bookshop.org to find a local shop near you. I will put all those resources when the episode comes out, so you can try to find the book local to support businesses. And where can people find you online?
I'm just at Michael Moreci on Twitter and Instagram, and michaelpmoreci.com is my website.
Nice. So thanks for coming on. It was very exciting to talk to you. Very excited for this book.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. This is a blast. I'm thrilled to be here. So yeah, I really appreciate it.
And we actually have a bonus question. We are joined by DC's publicity coordinator, Kat Newer.
Yeah, Newer is correct.
Look at me pronouncing it correctly.
Did it right, Dan.
So you are the first official DC context we've had like this way.
Okay.
So we wanted to hit you with our big question about what's your favorite sandwich?
It's a very important question. Well, right now I'm eating lots of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. It's definitely getting me through the quarantine.
What specific jelly? What's your brand?
I'm a big fan of raspberry jelly.
Oh, that's adventurous.
It's like a jam jelly type of mix.
Wow, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So thanks for helping us set this up. You can catch us next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.